Today I want to reflect with you on how one can come to complete peace with oneself, how one can make peace with others, and, if necessary, with the dear God as well. This is the so-called Autobiography according to Elizabeth Lucas. A truly wonderful tool that allows you to work through your life, take a stand, and reflect once again. If necessary, you can also revisit and carry out certain things, but most importantly, above all, how you can take a position regarding what has happened in your life. The Autobiography according to Elizabeth Lucas is a powerful tool. Of the hundreds of people who have come to me regarding the autobiography, who have said, I would like to take a look at my life, how it has gone, and what has happened. Basically, it must be said that in logotherapy itself, it is not like in-depth psychology, where you have to dissect every single little piece, then somehow interpret it and say, this happened in the past, and that's why I am the way I am today. No, that's not how it is in logotherapy. In logotherapy, we are in what is called height psychology. That is something completely different from depth psychology. In height psychology, you are not dependent on your past, on what has happened. Instead, there is always something new, and you can say, yes, it happened, but still I am different, or I still do things differently. This is what is called the defiant power of the spirit. That means I have experienced something. Let's say, for example, you were beaten. You say, I was beaten, but then that would be the defiant power of the spirit. But I do not beat my children. Or, for example, I never heard the words, I love you, but that would be the defiant power of the spirit. I tell my children, I tell my partner, I tell my loved ones that I love them. So that means in the autobiography, according to Elizabeth Lucas, it is an additional tool. It is often said in logotherapy that looking into the past is a luxury. I know people who say, I have to look into the past because that's where the answer is buried. But the question is that really the answer? I knew a person who said, I'm going to try to figure out everything possible here, because if I figure that out, then I can change my life today. I don't believe that's really the truth. I believe I can live my life today the way I want to. Today I can have values, I can take a stand on what is, and from that live a very, very, very good life. Because if I simply push it off into the past, then it's in the past. Maybe the answer or the responsibility lies there, and what can I do then? Elizabeth Lucas said, the best psychotherapist in the world cannot change my story, my past, your past that you have experienced. That means if we think about autobiography, then we first have to say that's definitely the case. A wonderful luxury tool. When I write my autobiography, I do it in such a way that I sit down for it. And then I divide the page. So I split it into two sides, and then very deliberately I say, on the left, I will now write how the story actually happened. There I write about my parents, I write about them. A chapter or two chapters about how I experienced my parents, my mother, my father, everything that comes to mind about it. So not just 4 or 5 lines, but on the left side, I write down everything that comes to mind. Maybe even pages worth about my parents. And when I have that, I move on to the next point. And then I write down how was my childhood, my preschool years. And then on the left side, I write down everything that comes to mind, the good things, the not so good things, everything that comes back to my memory. And then I write about my school years. And when I finish that, I write about my university studies or my vocational training period. And then I write about my adult life, my family, until I reach the present. The present is then a special topic, a topic of its own. But once I've written all of that up to the present, then I move on. And now I take a look at the right side. On the right side, that's where I write now. What are my thoughts today about back then? So not from the perspective of a child anymore, not from the perspective of a teenager, not from the perspective of a trainee, but from today's perspective. After all, I've grown. I'm not the same person anymore. I don't have the same feelings, the same thoughts as back then. I probably don't even have the same values as I did back then. Some counselors work with the inner child in this way. That may be true for them, but I always say to myself, wait a minute. I have grown after all. I have 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years older than back then. So today, from the right side, if I write it down, I can take a position on the left side on what happened there. So I write down my thoughts there. Then I also write down my feelings. How do I feel today? Yes, maybe it's something similar to what I felt back then. But how do I feel today? When I read what happened back then, whether it was good or not so good, then I look at what What kind of feelings do I have today? I write down openly what I think. And then comes a very important tool. Then comes the statement, so to speak. With the statement, I take a position from today's perspective. How do I judge what happened? Do I judge it positively? Do I judge it negatively? What values can I take from it? Lucas or Frankl, they said, to thresh out, so to speak, what is still fruitful. What else is possible there? So that's really, really great, because on the right side, and I can do this again and again, not just once. So when I've written on the left side, I can always take a position on the right side. Thoughts and feelings, statement, and then again, thoughts and feelings, statement, thoughts and feelings, statement. So this is something really, really great for writing your autobiography. I simply advise you, when you're writing your autobiography, that once you've written about your parents, that you make an appointment with me so we can check if you're on the right track, and then you can continue writing, so that you don't end up writing the entire autobiography and then realize, oh, now I have to rewrite everything. Instead, just write down on the left side everything that comes to mind about your parents, your feelings, thoughts, and your perspective. And then we'll set up an appointment and discuss it together to see what else we can find and how you can certainly continue writing your autobiography even better. When you then get to the present is, of course, something very exciting. I always thought that when I finished dealing with the past with Lucas, that was it, that it was done. Like, the autobiography has now been discussed. But she told me something really interesting. Now, the autobiography is only just beginning. And for that, I also put together a paper so you can read through it, so you can ask yourself, what actually is the present? We think the present is like this. Minimal, just a minute or an hour or a day. But maybe the present is much bigger than you thought, and much richer, and much more beautiful, and much more colorful. So writing an autobiography is always something very moving. Just get in touch regarding this paper and I'll send it to you by email so you have it and can build on it. Also, how do I structure the autobiography? And then once you finish that, we'll move on to the future and take a look at what actually, in the next 2 years, what will happen in the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now. We also reflect on that, yes, even up to death. The autobiography is truly something holistic, and people experience it in such a way that they say, it's incredible, the sense of sovereignty, the sense of calm I have now reached. Elements occur that you have never experienced like this before. Many, many destructive beliefs, images, often images that we had in our minds. These are reformatted. Such a decoding takes place, a recoding of emotions, a recoding of attitudes. Many people also tell me after the autobiography sessions that they feel physically better, that they notice they are no longer so tense, that they can breathe better, that their headaches change, back pain, pressure on the chest. These are people who repeatedly report this because they simply notice that this inner pressure subsides and peace comes in. And that is something truly, truly beautiful, something special to experience it that way, and then also to write it down, but then also to discuss it. Because my task as a coach is to see what has not yet been seen. But not just the negative things, rather what positive aspects can still be found here. What gifts, abilities are lying dormant, ones that may have once been active, but now, strangely or suddenly, are no longer being considered. A woman who once wrote her autobiography. But she was asked by her acquaintances and friends, so how was the conversation? How did you experience the coaching? What was it like for you? And she wrote back to me and said, do you know what I answered them? That was one of the most beautiful conversations I've ever had in my life. Well, those were some interesting compliments. Thank you for that. It's something truly special. But I believe that really the autobiography, most people only write it once in their life, perhaps. Maybe someone does it a second time, but normally people do it once in their life and it's worth it. I have many men, including executives, who come and also write their autobiography, and it's always the same. I had someone here who came from a large company and worked through several points in his life. And he also said that it did him so much good. Simply to get a panoramic view of your life, to gain new strength, new thoughts, and to remember, to truly rethink and anchor in your heart those old sources that no longer really worked well, that no longer gave you strength, but rather dragged you down. And that's really what the autobiography is, something with which you can truly make great progress. And with that, I wish you all the best as you write. Just start writing things down. send me a short email. I'll send you the document so that you can have it, so you know how to write it, in what detail, and what the template looks like. So to speak, what goes where and in what order. And then let's set up an appointment soon so we can go through the autobiography together. I'm already looking forward to this appointment.